Hi guys, it's LS, and I'm making a vlog that I promised to do on generic like League of Legends stuff for like elo climbing, champions to stay away from, and then I'll comment a little bit on the 4.11 changes, even though they're already live. And then on top of that, I asked the public to ask me questions via my Facebook, and I'll answer them at the end of the video. Um, so basically, this will also be a vlog on like stuff that's been going on. So with, like getting that started, since my last vlog, all that's really happened is that we went 3-1 in Super Week, and when I say we, I mean Super Hot Crew. So that's pretty good. So going into this week, we have to face Gambit and Fnatic, which I'm not really too worried about. I think we're 3-0 against Fnatic, I believe. And Gambit just did a roster change, I believe. They swapped out Darien and Diamond Prox, so I'm not really too concerned. Like when you change two core components to the team, that are such like figure pieces basically inside of the team, I don't really know how fast of a change that you can get in terms of like overall gameplay and stuff. So I'm not too concerned in that front. Obviously, like Genja and Edward are still really good, and Nyx, I think that's how you say his ID. He's okay, but I think making such drastic changes like that, I'm not really too worried about this upcoming week. So that's on that front. Outside of that, basically, I mentioned that I had plans to eventually go to Germany to do like boot camping with the team house. And that should possibly be happening sometime soon, or at least that's what I'm hoping for. That's the overall goal. Either right before playoffs, if we like need it, or like if we do qualify for playoffs, I'll probably just go out there for playoffs and stay for a short duration through there, specifically for boot camp purposes. So on that front, that's basically all that's been happening with League of Legends. Like in a personal level, I guess, in terms of like my team and everything that I've been doing on that front. So everything's pretty good on on that way. But as for like the stuff that I promised that I would talk about, a lot of people, when it comes to climbing elos, like so first off, I want to address the concept of elo hell. Okay, if you acknowledge that elo boosting exists, then you must also acknowledge that elo hell does not exist. So that's number one. Elo hell just simply does not exist, because if it did, then there wouldn't be elo boosters that make a living off boosting people's ideas out of certain elos, because they've established these techniques that work at individual elos, and it's meant to carry out of that elo, because the mass majority, not all of the players, but the mass majority fall victim to specific strategies or champions or play styles or something inside of that elo. And something that might, I'm sure everyone in bronze knows about it. You all think that like a Mumu or Malphite's OP, but you never see those champions really picked in higher elo, and that's because the players know how to handle and respond to those champions. And on the same token, I would argue that silver through platinum, you could you could play single player, in the sense that you could pick a champion like Tryndamere or Master Yi or Shaco or who's another split pusher, Teemo, or like anything like that, and you could probably almost never leave lane, and your win rate would actually probably go up from what you're normally trying to do. And that's because the team communication at those elos, a lot of the players don't have the ability to communicate, and their mechanics aren't as on par as higher, the higher you move up, Diamond 5, Diamond 4, Diamond 3, etc., all the way up to Diamond 1, Challenger. And because they're not on par, there's less team communication, and then Platinum and Gold also happens to probably be the most toxic of the places, and that's just due to the dynamic of how those elos work. It has nothing to do with like individual people. It's just like when people get into gold, they think that they're instantaneously better than silvers and bronzes, when in reality, sometimes you're actually only in gold because you were better than silvers, but you're not actually better than gold. So you get into that like stuck phase, and then some people like it's different for all the elos and stuff. So there are techniques that you can do to climbing out of certain elos. One thing that I would recommend is to resist death. And if you've watched my coaching videos here on YouTube, you've probably heard me talk about resisting death a lot. And what I mean by that is that typically, if you look at players' win rates on like their LOL King or their OpGG or LOL Nexus, whatever site you use, you'll notice that a lot of people that are stuck in LOs, they have like 51% or 52% win ratio, which means that if they are going to go up, it's going to be ridiculously slow. So, and the reason for that is because when they win a game, what they're used to having happen is they're used to either getting like a kill or 2 kills, and like their jungler captures 2 dragons, and like they get the first 2 towers, and the enemy team just falls behind, and they start raging at each other. So the enemy team just inherently starts playing bad, and then they win because they got an early advantage, and they come to lane, say they're an 80 carry, and they get double kill, you know what I mean? And they come to lane, with BF Sword and a Vamp Scepter against a Vamp Scepter and a Doran's Blade. And at that level, the enemy 80 carry doesn't know what he has to do to outmaneuver or like outplay the BF Sword Vamp Scepter with just his Vamp Scepter. He's not aware of like the concepts and the positioning and like how he has to trade and when he can trade and in what ways he has to farm and how to let his lane push and blah 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 blah. And because he's not used to all of this, he tries to just duel you out of frustration, and it's just not going to happen because all you actually have to do is press the right click and activate a few abilities, a majority of the time anyway, and all of a sudden, bam, another double kill or something. And now you're 4-0 in lane, and you feel like you did really, really good, and you don't belong in this LO, blah, 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 blah. But on the same token, when you're in that other 80 carries position where you gave up double kill, you go back to lane, you blame your support or something, or maybe it wasn't your support's fault, maybe the enemy just actually played well. You go back to that lane and you get frustrated because you don't want to have to play from behind. And on top of not wanting to play from behind, you haven't learned how to properly play from behind. So of course you're going to be making more and more mistakes, and you're going to fall further and further behind, and then you're going to lose the game. And you're going to put all that blame on doing poorly in lane early on. You're not even going to entertain the fact that pros or elo boosters or people higher than you, they have these techniques or methods that they know how to come back and make themselves relevant in the mid game or even the late game, depends on the champion, the longer the game goes, by doing these certain things that can make them important to the team the longer the game goes. Just because, like, say I put a Diamond 1 or something, it doesn't have to even be Diamond 1, into, like, a Bronze 1 game, and I have him take over a 0-4 Rise with 30 CS at 10 minutes or something, okay? He's not going to say the game's over. What he's going to do is he's going to farm incorrectly. And what I mean by that is he'll go to lane and he'll turn on ultimate and just CS the wave, and then he'll go and he'll eat golems or something, and he'll go and eat wraiths, and he'll try to roam mid, and he'll give up CS at top because he wants the CS to clump up. And even though he won't eat 18 CS from 3 waves because some of his minions would have killed the enemy minions, it's a lot safer for him to wait for all the minions to clump up because his opponent's trying to freeze the lane and then push to tower or something. So he arrives and there's 15 minions clumped up, and he can CS them under tower really, really fast, turn on ultimate, etc. And in the meantime, he's doing all these things for his team, like roaming around, thus creating vision for his jungler. He's creating, technically counter vision for the enemy jungler. He's farming golems, he's farming wraiths, he's doing whatever he can to somehow get to those core items. Because at the end of the day, all that it is the core items that you have to achieve. It doesn't matter how you achieve them. And this is something else that a lot of people don't understand, is that objective is king, objective is king, CS is queen, and kill is rook. If you've watched like me coaching Sky, you might have heard that analogy. But basically what that means is that a lot of people, they put so much emphasis on kills. They don't even calculate in like dragon gold, they don't calculate in CS gold, jungler item gold, like how much gold your jungler item has, over the opponent's jungler item. They don't calculate in like tower, like if you guys are up 3 towers or whatever. No, what they think is that if the scoreboard says 7 to 15, that you're just behind. What they might not realize is that even though it says 7-15, you're up 3 dragons and 6 towers, and all of your team's CS is up 20 on the opposing team. So even though the other team's getting the best of you inside some of the team fights, or you guys may be getting picked off sometimes, it doesn't mean that you're actually behind. You have to look at the gold that they can't control, and the gold that they can't control outside of the kills is inside of the CS, the dragons, the towers, the jungler item, GP10 items that you might have. If you're running runes, then I guess you could factor that in as well. And that's pretty much that. So there's that aspect of the game that a lot of people don't consider. So as far as something that goes for climbing, going back to like me saying that you just have to resist death, is if you can get comfortable playing with a Doran's Blade, Vamp Scepter against a Doran's Blade, Vamp Scepter, yes, you're not going to be, pressing Q on Graves and chunking them for half their HP. Okay, you're not going to be going to lane with Trinity Force at 11 minutes on Ezreal, because let's be honest, you're not supposed to be going to lane at 11 minutes with a Trinity Force on Ezreal or Lucian. That's what happens when you get fed, like, abnormally fast, and that's not supposed to be normal. Traditionally, you wouldn't end up having that item until a few minutes later. And if that's the case, that means that your damage would inherently be weaker, during those few minutes that you're taking you to build up. And basically what happens, silver, gold, platinum, even diamond, at the lower LOs of diamond, like low LP diamond 1 or something, as a lot of the players, they're really bad in extended fights, in extended trades. And what I mean by that is, like, so mid is a 2v2 lane. So if the jungler and the mid laner aren't on the same page, you probably see this happen all the time, where someone will want to dive, or someone will want to commit to the 2v2, or maybe it's a 3v3 or something, but then someone backs off, and someone committed, and they're like, oh, why didn't you go? Because there's this miscommunication. And it was because the fight went on like 5 or 7 seconds, and not all the players have the same level of foresight. So they don't actually all know the same exact outcome. They're all thinking different things. And so when a fight is extended, and it's extended because the itemization does not allow you to just delete someone, you end up getting more and more mistakes out of your opponent. So if you can become content with being the best with the worst items, then you'll also get better as a player. And this applies to all LOs. It doesn't just apply to like diamond or like platinum or whatever. Because truth be it, like, there's actually not even much of a difference between some diamond levels and some platinum. And there's also not much of a difference between like low platinum and high gold. There actually almost isn't. It might just be play styles. It might just be like champion pool. It might just be how you play. Well, I guess that goes back to play styles, but the other thing is that in order to get into Platinum 5 from Gold 1, you don't have to be Platinum level. You just have to be the best Gold 1 player. And that's something that people don't understand, is that there are individual techniques that can be used, again, this goes back to what I said earlier, at all the individual LOs that can be used to accelerate or climb you out of certain stuck places, I guess. So with that being said, let me also address a topic of champions to stay away from. And this is something that I'm very adamant about, and if you watch my other videos, I've talked about how I ban against my own team. So what this is just a list of champions. I'm just going to read them off. So champions to stay away from, and then I'll explain why, are Lee Sin, Khasinau, Twisted Fate, Syndra, Ezreal, Draven, Jace, Fizz, Akali, Thresh, Nami, Twitch. These are the ones that I can think of off like the top of my head. And the reason that I say this is because a lot of these champions have some combos that cannot be done in over like 60 ping. So that's number one. So you're hurting yourself as a player because some of their really key and really clutch combos just simply cannot be executed because where you live in the US or where you live in Europe, you're not near the server, whatever it is, so that's number one. Number two, what makes these champions so good is indeed their kits, but it's how their kits can be manipulated by high-level players with high-level foresight and knowing exactly how to position themselves and how to build these champions and then how to use these champions. Just because you see these champions played by pros a lot or you see them used in solo queue, it doesn't mean that they're right for you to play. If you're in silver, and I don't mean any offense to you, you probably can't land Ezreal's skill shots, to make Ezreal good or why he does it, you know. And if you're building Blue Ezreal and it's reliant on like pristine control and always landing those like Qs and always landing the Ws and always Eing at the right time and landing, you know, the Rs properly inside of fights, you're probably not doing that. And that's why you're losing with Ezreal. It has nothing to do with Ezreal as the champion, but you just simply don't have the control to control him. And now I can see people saying to me, well, then how am I ever going to get the control to control him if I don't play him and practice him, blah, 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 blah. Well, first off, you want to get your basics down, and you want your mechanics to be down. And if you're in silver, you probably don't have your basics down. That's just like the truth of it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, silver is not bronze, but it's also not gold. But at the same time, there's not too much of a difference between the two. Basically, like, you should work on your primary mechanics of CSing. You should work on your primary mechanics of itemization and building. You should work on your primary mechanics of micro inside of team fights with more generic champions that are not so intensive and like unforgiving as some of these champions. Twisted Fate, what makes him so good is his ability to roam and his ability to carry the map through his ultimate, you know what I mean? And his ability to basically not allow some lanes to fall behind because he can just instantly appear there, you know, as if like he has teleport up every single second. Other things that go into making Twisted Fate as good as he is his later stage split pushing ability, but also his wave control. And these are all concepts that if you're in lower elos, you just simply don't understand it high enough to like play that. And I don't care if your Twisted Fate has a 4-to-1 KDA in Platinum or something like that, or like you have a 70% win rate. You don't understand the champion, like, and you're playing them, and if you have that 4-to-1 KDA 70% win rate, then why are you still stuck in that elo? I don't know. And a lot of other people, they always ban Khasinau. They're like, oh, Khasidan's OP, Khasidan's like, he needs to be nerfed, and Khasidan can't be controlled. Have you seen a silver player on Khasinau? He rift walks in as if he's going to instantaneously just deal 9,000 damage because he's been led to believe that's what Khasinau does. And then all of a sudden he gets popped for like 80% of his HP and he flashes backwards because he's like, oh, whoops. Like he doesn't actually know how to use the rift walk. So like, and then you pick the Lee Sins and like you see them run up to a wall because they're gonna ward jump over it, and they pause for 2 seconds, and you're like, does he even have a ward? And then you see the ward shoot over, and then he jumps to it. Like everything's so slow on like lower level Lee Sins, and they don't even know how to use his wards, and they try to do these flashy plays because they want to look like a pro, and maybe they're playing with a duo queue partner, or maybe someone's watching them, or they just want to feel better, you know, whatever. But truth be told, they can't control Lee Sin the way that he needs to be controlled to be OP. If they control Lee Sin the way they control it, Lee Sin's a terrible champion. I would rather like have a Teemo or a Poppy on my team, because at least I know that Teemo and Poppy only have to press 2 buttons, and I know that they're going to deal damage. Lee Sin at least has to hit these really like microscopic skill shots, and he has to be really, really like coy with his positioning inside of fights and stuff. So like, I actually suggest that you either ban it and let like no one pick it, not even your own teammates, or you just let it through. Because truth of the matter is that these champions that I just listed, if you're in platinum, gold, silver, bronze, they can't be played the way that they need to be played to make them OP. And even if like some of their skills are just OP for you to handle or something, it's not even totally about that sometimes. It's just about like how they maneuver themselves. So that's my stance on like these really weird champions. Like semi-pros mess up these champs all the time. You know what I mean? Like, anyways, so that's enough for that. So now I'll what else did I want to talk about? Like, I'll mention a tier list for mid, because a lot of people had been asking me for a tier list about mid. And so I have a tier list that I made. This is just my opinion. Don't take it as gospel, because again, nothing that I say is gospel. It is just my opinion and my stance on how I view League of Legends and everything like that. So tier 1, we have Ryze, Orianna, Lulu, Khasidan, Yasuo, Kayle, Karthus, and Twisted Fate. Tier 1.5 is Fizz and Ziggs, and that's primarily because of the Chalice nerf, but also Ziggs got nerf, or the Athene's nerf, Fizz kind of comes back into power, but she's not necessarily tier 1 yet, because if you know how to play against her, you know what, Fizz is a girl, if you didn't know, okay, good, I'm glad we're on the same page. So anyways, the Athene's nerf, the damage outputs and stuff, it doesn't hurt Fizz as much as it used to in the earlier stages, and then also the fact that the utility mids are going to begin to fall out of power enables assassins to somewhat come back. And Fizz obviously is an assassin, but she deals hybrid damage, whatever, so there's that. Ziggs falls to tier 1.5 primarily because of his nerfs, but also because of the Athene's nerf. It's not like he's out of the game yet whatsoever, but he's definitely not tier 2 either, so he's like in between that sticky place where Fizz is. Ryze goes back up to tier 1 because the nerfs to the utility mids, and then Ryze is relatively good against some of the mids that are becoming popular, and he's also good against assassins in general. So there's that phase. Orianna, Lulu, they remain basically untouched despite the nerfs to Athenes because their kits are just too good. You can't argue with their kits. Khasinau, doesn't matter how many times he gets nerfed, his ultimate and his, how he works is what makes him good. And Riot doesn't seem to understand that. His problem is, his ult. I don't know how else to say it. And that one of his abilities, is like a giant AoE slow that is charged, and it doesn't really cost too much mana. I mean, that's not all of his problems, but that's a generic point of him. Yasuo, Kayle, Karthus, Twisted Fate, they're just all pretty generic. When used in the right hands, they're really monstrous, and Karthus is a relatively safe pick that can go up against assassins, even though people don't think that, and he actually has favorable matchups against some of them. Tier 2, I put Anivia, Zed, Syndra, Xerath. Xerath is a really misunderstood champion. He's really near the top level of champions, but a lot of people don't play him, so you don't think that or something. It's similar to Kayle before she became popular, or any champion before she became popular. So there's that. Anivia, she's just really good. Her tankiness and the changes to mid, and how mid's being played, she's actually kind of okay. I don't think that she's that bad anymore. Zed, he comes back to tier 2 basically because the resurgence of assassins are going to become potent again, and then just the fall off of the utility mids, so that's good. Tier 3 is Riven, Soraka, AP Tristana, Ezreal, Lucian, Annie, Akali, Ahri. These are just mids that they can be played, but they're extremely situational, and they're kind of player preference picks, and even then they don't really fit into a majority of comps, and they're kind of solo champs. They all kind of do their own thing, except for maybe Lucian or Ezreal, in which case you're running double AD carry. So that's why I mentioned that. Soraka can fit into comps, but after her nerfs, and then after the Athene's nerf and such, she just kind of fell off. Tier 4, LeBlanc, Cassiopeia, Katarina, Heimerdinger, Talon. This is pretty generic, I feel. LeBlanc, after she got gutted in half, and the nerfs to Athenes and stuff, it just kind of hurt her. Cassiopeia, always been bad. Katarina, I know a lot of people might argue this. I could even argue that maybe she's tier 3 in my opinion, but she's extremely reliant on her team for a majority of reasons. She has extremely weak and volatile laning phases. She's really prone to just falling behind and not really being able to recover well. She's really prone to needing items. It's just not a very peaceful place for her. Heimerdinger, just he had this surgence where he was really, really good, and then he got gutted. And then Talon is just a bad form of Zed. That's the only way to put it. He has to commit to things. His ultimate's counteracted by Oracle and Pink Wards, and his burst isn't really that. I mean, his burst is high, but it's not unmanageable. So it's he's in this weird spot. So, anyways, enough with this ranting. I'll answer questions now that people asked on Facebook. So hold on. I'll just scroll down and answer random questions, and I'll just say the first name of the person. So Jamie asks, will you be doing a Shaco guide? And I will, actually, probably within the next week. I'll be releasing a Shaco guide. What do you think is the best way to build Pulse Fire? Mega Man Society on Facebook asks, what is the best way to build Khasinau now and why? I've seen people build Roa first item and I've seen them go DFG item, which is better. Well, DFG actually doesn't make any sense. I tweeted, even when Selfie did it in that game, that I disagreed with it. Khasinau is not supposed to get boots. A lot of people haven't heard me talk about this, but basically if you run movement quintessence and movement masteries on Khasinau, he's faster than all of the 80 carries running tier 2 boots. And if you can't position yourself with that great mobility, and then when you factor in Lichbane, he actually gets even quicker. If you can't position yourself with a flash on a 3-second cooldown and you're moving faster than 60% of the champions in the game, you have an issue as a player. You're really bad. That's just how it is. So Khasinau is one of the few champions in the game that can go 6 full items, completely circumventing boots. Traditionally, it should probably go Roa into Seraph's Embrace, into Void Staff, into Deathcap or something, just to have a safe stance throughout everything, and then obviously Zonias and stuff are crucial. And if it's solo queue, I'm always an advocate of Magi's. So, Miguel asks, best AD carries to carry in low elo. I'm a huge fan of Graves in low elo, and that just actually reminded me, an AD carry to stay away from is Vayne. Don't pick Vayne. Okay, good, great. Henning, I guess that's his first name. Henning asks, to climb, go with the ops or something, or go with the OPs, something a bit off or something random. For example, jungling. He lists Lee Sin as OP, Nocturne a bit off, and Fiddle random. Well, stay away from Lee Sin. He's OP, but you can't control him to make him OP. So he's actually just a champion with a kit that is not OP because he can't be manipulated, to be overpowered. I'm a fan of junglers that are very farm heavy in solo queue, and also junglers that are very objective focused. So junglers that basically are not reliant on the team, but if you are higher elo, Lee Sin is a high pick, you can do that because he is objective focused and he's playmaker in terms of objective focus. But junglers like Warwick and Evelyn, who's split pushing, but she's also objective focused. They're really good. Master Yi, I think, is really good for solo queue, even in high elo. You have other junglers, now 4.11, I think Maokai is going to be really good. He's not necessarily objective focused or split push focused, but he's just really, really good. Yeah, pretty much that. Loco Doco. I can't answer that, Loco. I'm sorry. Marcus asks, how do you best carry at silver? My opinion for the best way of carrying at silver is to endlessly split push. That's my honest opinion. Almost to the point of insanity. Just split push. Honestly. Yeah. What starting item do you like for Twisted Fate? I don't mean level 1, I mean core, like Zonia's, Pookie Ghost, Lichbane, etc. It's always going to be dependent on the matchup and your team comp. The team comps are always going to affect how you build and how you itemize. Generally, obviously, all the champions will have core items, but how they complete them and how they come to build them is always going to be different. So that's too hard to answer. In some matchups, it's going to be Lichbane. In other matchups, it might be Zonia's. In other matchups, it might be I don't know, Doran's Doran, Sork Boots into Deathcap or something. Some really weird itemizations might come out. So this is too subtle to answer. Solo queue tier list. I will be making a solo queue tier list, but it won't be in this video. I know that I did list a mid tier list, but yeah. Grant Hill asks a question in which he is the answer. So, could you explain? What do I think about the Lucian nerf that happened? Is it necessary to give him only 500 range? The Lucian nerfs don't actually crucify him the way that people make them sound. I feel like everyone crying about the Lucian nerfs right now are the same people that cried about the Ezreal nerfs when Ezreal got gutted. like a few years ago or something, and then it still didn't matter because he was still good. Like 50, like Lucian isn't played because of his auto attack range. Like yes, it does help him be a bully, but he's played for his insane utility. His kit is retarded, and then he's one of the only AD carries with actual proper wave clear. Like, yeah. And also Blue Lucian got buffed. So yeah. How important do I think counter picking is? I think it's important for lower LOs. I don't think it's important for higher LOs. The Lucian changes, reducing being played more in top and mid lanes. I don't think Lucian will ever be played in top lane, but Blue Lucian can definitely be played in mid lane. Kai asks, how do I think SSU will be ending up in the standings? Will they be able to be a top contender for Worlds soon? I personally believe that we can get to Worlds. That's my honest opinion. And if we don't get to Worlds, then top 4 is highly probable. Like, that's my opinion on that. So Javier asks, what do you think about Leblanc without the silence, since it was a very good help against champions that force you to melee, and do I like strawberries? I guess I do like strawberries. And as for Leblanc, she's been completely gutted. Without her silence, it allows too many champions in the mid lane that she used to be good against to reciprocate damage and /or stuns against her, and like gap close onto her. So it's not too good. So... And then someone asked about like the pro side of coaching, and I can't like talk about that. So yeah. Alex asks, is Lich Bane a must on Lulu? Yes. That is a must. Miguel asks, I'm in the learning process of how to choose a main lane. Why do you choose mid lane as my main? I chose mid lane as my mage because, as my main lane because I was always a fan of like mages. Or like manipulation of magic and whatever. I know that sounds like so geeky, whatever. But I was also a fan of like the aspect of how it could roam and how it could play and how it was like a 2v2 lane, and I don't know. I felt like mid lane had the most impact on the game. I also liked how mid lane got the most farm because the champions were considered the most important for needing farm. So yeah. Ethan asks, why am I bad at League even though I watch guides, try to practice mechanics, try different builds, etc.? What are mistakes to avoid during the learning process? Just because you're doing practice and you're watching guides, etc., it doesn't mean that you're doing it efficiently or correctly. If you go and you're trying to learn how to play baseball and you're trying to learn how to pitch a ball and you're just throwing it at your friend who's receiving or catching or whatever, if you're not doing proper stances, you think that you're doing proper stances, but you don't actually have a coach or someone to tell you that you're not doing it right, you're going to keep doing it over and over and over, and you're not going to realize that all that time you're just actually wasting time because none of it is correct. So you might just have to reevaluate like how you're actually learning as a person, and evaluate if your coaching method is even correct. So Marcus asked, is AD carry or mid better for carrying in high plat? I'm under the belief that mid is almost always the best role to carry from in every elo, with the exception of maybe like Diamond or something, where it might be like jungle. But yeah, I don't think AD carry is ever a role that you want to go to carry from. I mean, it's not that it can't carry, it's just that I wouldn't recommend it to carry, and my foot fell asleep, oh my god. Okay, and then Alex asked if I like pancakes, and I do like pancakes. But I like real pancakes, like, or not real pancakes, but like the American kind that's like really fat and full of sugar and like, yeah. Okay, so that's all for this vlog. If you want to see more from me, I stream sometimes, and I know I don't really commentate too much, but that's for like a lot of reasons and stuff. But you can check me out on Twitch, and you can follow more updates on like Twitter and stuff, and then I'll have something coming for League of Legends soon, actually, that isn't being done yet in the community. So, okay, see you soon. Bye.